great choices of Brazilian craft beers, some American craft beers, Australian. I even had an Albanian beer, Tirana Pilsner. Has anyone had that? No, it's not very nice, but I thought it was... So a landlord in North Wales gave me a bottle about 10 years ago, and for some reason I made some notes and I went on the internet. Oh, I also had 2 beers from Belarus. Has anyone had any beers from Belarus? No. There was this guy in Peterborough. He'd married a Belarus woman, and he got in touch with me, and he said, I'm bringing in, I never heard that, but I'm bringing in some Belarus beers. Would you like some samples? And of course, I'm interested in beers from around the world. I do a lot of travelling. I mean, that's what I do the travel writing for the Sunday Times travel magazine quite often, the Daily Mail occasionally, and even the Telegraph, because I can go to breweries. I'll go out there and I'll walk around somewhere like Leipzig or Berlin or Portland, as I was last month, and I'll make my notes and, observe people and everything and talk to people. But then the main reason I do it, I hope there's no travel editors here, is I get to the breweries. I can email people and say, are you free on Saturday afternoon? And, it builds up your information, it builds up your knowledge. And anyway, this guy, the Belarus beer, they were actually rather good. There was a porter. Is it all right? The noise. It's not too bad. Yeah. The Belarus porter was actually rather good. But when it came to writing about it, I had 300 words to write about it, and I don't really want to do 300 words of smells like coffee, Scotch chocolate, over 300 words. So I ended up writing about the president of Belarus, because that's all I could find on Google Translate, and how he'd liberated the brewing industry or something. But anyway, that's a bit about the 1001 beers. Other books I've written, I had several books published with the Campaign for Real Ale, CAMRA. Britain's Beer Revolution was the most recent one, which I wrote with Roger Protz. I don't know if anyone's heard of him. He's he's the doyen of British beer writing, been writing since the 70s, and it was great to write with Roger, even though, we're a bit like Little and Large when we do our talks and everything. And I've written also history. This sounds really boring, but believe me, it was really interesting. I wrote a book called Brewing Champions, which apparently is going to be going on Amazon soon, and it was commissioned, and it was a history of the oldest brewing competition in the world, called the International Brewing Awards, and it's held... Hello? Yeah. It's held in Burton-on-Trent every 2 years, but it started... According to the logo of the company that owns the awards, it started in 1886. I got commissioned 18 months ago to write it, and I don't know if any of you know this. Has anyone been to Oxford Brookes here? I'm not getting much luck, am I? Anyway, but they have a national brewing library there. So if anyone's interested in reading beer books, old brewing journals going back to the 19th century, you should get over to Oxford Brookes, sign yourself in there, and you can spend a wonderful afternoon there. And I did spend quite a few. And one of the things was, as I said, the person that Ruth, who commissioned me from I can't remember the name of the organisation, it's the BFBI, and they supply the brewing industry with beverages and everything. She said, it's great, we've had this competition going since 1886, we want you to write the history of it. So I started researching, and she goes, we spent a lot of money on that logo, competition since 1886, and my first afternoon in the Oxford Brookes, I found out that it actually started in 1888, and she said, we're not going to actually change that logo. So that was my first sort of bit of... So it's called the International Brewing Awards, and if you look online, and it will say, been going since 1886, actually 1888, and that's what happens when you get beer writers into things. But that's what I do. I write about travel, and I think it's really important. The theme of what I just wanted to sort of rattle on about to you guys tonight was, I, as a beer writer, as a journalist, as someone who writes about beer, and I'll say food, travel and pubs and all the intersect together, is I think it's really important to travel. A lot of you out here will have travelled to places, will have drunk beer in places like Germany, the Czech Republic, America, Albania, maybe. And, I think for me as a writer, it's a great way to find out what makes, to get to the soul of beer. You can sit at home. You can go down to Tesco and buy some. You can buy Duvel from Belgium, which is a fantastic sort of golden 8.5% pale ale. Does anyone like Duvel? Yeah. Cool. Blimey, there's a lot of drunkards here. No, I mean. It's a great beer, but I would caution you on not doing what I did in the late 80s. A friend of mine in Eindhoven, he said, you've got to try this Duvel, it's fantastic. 8 bottles later, I was holding onto a lamppost and wondering which way I had to go. I mean, it is a very, very seductive beer. And I think Duvel in Flemish is devil. So that night I did literally go to the devil. But yeah, you can do that, in my view. You can do that and you can think about it. You can go on Rate Beer. Any Rate Beer people here? There's a forum where people rate beers, as it suggests. You can do that and you can sit there and you can think, I think I know the soul of this beer now. But I do believe you've got to travel, and that is what I do. I mean, I was in America end of May, early June. I'm trying to remember that was then. And I was trying to get, I was doing a travel story. I was going to, Washington and Oregon. Now that's a beautiful part of the States. I'd never been out to the West Coast before. And I really, I drove along the Pacific coast. This year, as a traveller, I've had 2 great moments, 2 great heart-stopping moments where I thought, I've really wanted to see this place. First of all, when I saw the Pacific coast for the first time, there's something about, it's a bit of water. Oh, it's a big ocean. Japan's over there somewhere, I think. But there's something about it. There's sort of cultural resonance. And about 3 weeks ago, I was in Regensburg in Bavaria. Great beers there in Regensburg. And my son, who's 16 and a half, loved it because he could drink. I don't know, in Germany, you're 16, you're allowed to drink. And it's brilliant. It's like I pushed him forward to the bar and said, it's your round, mate. And next morning he said, I'm sure I had 8 pints. And I said, no, 4. He's only 16 and a half and he's already trying that old trick on you. But I saw the Danube. Again, it's just a stretch of water, but it's the Danube, and you think about the blue Danube. You think about it's going all the way down to the Iron Gates in Romania. And then you also think, there's a lot of breweries on that way. Again, that's what I do it for. That's what I just want, those cultural resonances. Now, when I was in the States, one of the challenges, and one of the things I thought about, I first went there in 1996, and I've been a journalist. I was a journalist before then. I'm not going to say how long I've been a journalist for. I've written about music, I've written about films. I even wrote about a Commodore computer game once, and I couldn't even work the Commodore, but my view is that as a journalist you get the information, provided it's accurate, you tell the information to people. That's what people want. So anyway, I was in America in 1996, see my brother-in-law, and I'm thinking, oh God, I'm going to have to drink wine, Zinfandel or something, because the beer, the reputation of American beer in the mid-90s in the UK, apart from the fact we could get Boston Lager, Sam Adams, people have heard of that one, and anyone remember Pete's Wicked Ale? Yeah, that was quite and Oddbins used to sell it, and St Stan's, which you could get in Tesco, and Sierra Nevada, dear old Sierra Nevada, you could get that a bit. But I just thought, no, I'm not going to be able to get it. So we go into Boston on our first free day, and my wife says, we'll have a look around Cambridge, which is, if you know Manchester, it's probably Cambridge is Salford to Boston's Manchester. I hope there's no people from Salford here I insult. There might be some Australians I might insult by accident later, but not really. But, I went in and it was a brew pub. It's a Cambridge Brewing Company, still going, and I just thought, my God, look at this. Amber ales, Scotch ales, wheaten ales. American breweries at that time hadn't started that great arms race for seeing how many hops they could get into their glass. And it was brilliant. I ended up having about 6 pints at lunchtime, and anyone who's drank in America, certain bars, they're fine. Dive bars, it's fine. I think it's obligatory to have at least 6 pints at lunchtime. But I got some funny old looks, and I said, well, I'm on holiday, I'm British, I'm used to this, and also I'm a journalist. But that was my waking moment. That was the time when I realised that America was producing beers. And I've never, I said 5 years ago, I wrote this piece, I went round Vermont, and for the Daily Telegraph, and I did a beer hunting piece. There's a film called Sideways, which is a couple of guys one guy's getting married, and they go around these wineries in California, and that's how I pitched the story, except it was beer, and I used public transport in Vermont. Well, that was the pitch to the Daily Telegraph, but then I got to Vermont, and I realised they don't do public transport in the States, so I got a car. But that was really... It was just fascinating to see what was happening there. But I've always set myself this challenge because I'm a great sort of fan of, I used to read a lot of American literature when I was younger, Jack Kerouac, Thomas Wolfe, Scott Fitzgerald, and I always liked the idea of dive bars. And I always liked the idea of going into dive bar and ordering Budweiser. Now, who likes Budweiser? The real one? Not Budweiser, the one that's made in London, in St. Louis, in various other places around the world. I'm not saying it's a bad beer, but it's not the sort of beer that I enjoy. But it's iconic, and some beers have that great iconic... I mean, I've been around the Heineken Museum or the Heineken Experience in Amsterdam, which is grim as hell. But, so anyway, my challenge has always been go into a dive bar and order either a Pabst Blue Ribbon, I think it's called, and a Milwaukee, or an old Natty, or a Budweiser. And twice I haven't been able to do it. I tried it in June. I was in a place called Newport, not in Wales, but this was in Oregon. And I went to this bar, and you've got the Stones are playing on the jukebox. I walked in, and the game of pool stopped as soon as I walked in. There's like a bloke half asleep at the bar on a stool, and it was great, really friendly. And I mean that, though. And I'm standing behind this guy waiting to be served. I'm looking at the taps. They've even got craft beers there now. There's craft beer everywhere. Even my mother's got some in her kitchen. And I'm looking at the Budweiser, and I think, this time I'm going to do it. This time I'm going to do it. And the guy in front of me said, pint of Budweiser, please. And I looked at it, and I thought, Christ, it looks like a sample. Can I have some Rogue Amber Ale, please? I really have failed that challenge. I've tried to drink Pabst. I mean, and I got sense. Have anyone tried Pabst Blue Ribbon? It's an iconic, ironic hipster beer. I mean, hipsters in America drink it because their fathers are probably drinking craft beer, and they want to say, well, look at me, I'm different. I got sent some once, and do you know what? The best thing I thought about it was use it for fishing or something. I mean, it was just like really nothing. But then, all beer is beer, and, we all drink something different. People like Green King, and all sorts of... that's a cheap joke, that one. But one of the, I'm moving on now. I mean, one of the reasons, I have a set sort of list of why I do travel, and I'm going to have to get it out on a piece of paper because, all this drinking over the years has done my memory some damage, I think. By the way, is anyone enjoying the Amber Ale? No, sorry, the Vienna. Yeah, that is I just think it's one of the best beers I've had this year. It's absolutely brilliant. I like the look of it. I like the way it clings to the glass when you drink the beer. I love the sort of chocolatey notes on it. And I love the fact that it's a Vienna. And I don't know if people know, Vienna was, it's a 19th century beer, a Vienna lager. And it was produced by Anton Dreyer, I think, who lived in Vienna, obviously. And he came to England to see what British brewers were doing. And one of the things he did was he went to Burton-on-Trent, and Burton-on-Trent in the 19th century was the sort of capital of, British brewing. And he basically did some industrial espionage. He had a walking stick with a hole in it, and he was pinching bits of beer so he could analyse them back in the hotel and find out what British brewers were doing. And I think I did read somewhere, he wrote in a letter to a friend, things got pretty hairy at one place. And I think, if anyone's been to Burton-on-Trent, things get pretty hairy there, usually about 9 o'clock in the evening. Right, if you excuse me a second, I will just find my place. It's a bit like when you do exams, you have these things in your head, the sort of mnemonics, think, oh yes, I'll get that one right. Treaty of Versailles, yeah, right, I've got that one, that's great. Right, one of the reasons, this is what Travel and Beer is about for me, and it might be for you guys as well. You don't have to be a writer to do it. First of all, you become a local. We've all had that American Werewolf in Paris effect, haven't we? When we walk into a pub, the door creaks open,
everyone stopped speaking Welsh. And that happens to me, even though I'm Welsh. I've walked into a pub in the middle of Wales, and we walked in, 3 of us, and everyone stopped and looked at us and then started speaking in English. And we had to sort of go, when we went to the bar, we would like say, well, actually, we're from Norfolk, we're just up the road, actually. We just don't sound very Welsh. You know, we like that sense of being local. Then there's my local pub. I live on Exmoor. One of the things, you know, we do, you know people, I don't know, all of you guys must have local pubs. You know, sometimes the great thing about a local pub, for me, it doesn't matter if you've got 500 beer taps and, you know, you've got a beer made with herrings on today. What matters to me most in my local pub is banter, is people. You know, I love going down the pub, and I just love, you know, talking about what's been happening today. It might be absolute rubbish. You know, it just might be, where have you been today? Oh, someone talks about, you know, a road's been blocked, or there's been a cow wandered out of a field or something. That's the countryside for you. But, you know, that's what the local pub is about for me. Yeah, it's great. It's a benefit. You've got a good beer. I mean, I need at least one good beer there. I mean, I don't want, you know, I do, you know, I'm a bit like Inspector Morse. You know, if I go in a pub and there's a beer I don't like there at all, I'm out again. You know, but I do want thousands of beers in a pub, but there's different moods for different pubs. So that's another reason about travel. And so you can go, you know, we're talking about beers, really interesting beers, really rare beers. People have heard, I don't know if anyone's heard of a Leipziger Goose, which is a beer which is it's just very common to Leipzig, and it's made with coriander, coriander seeds, it's made with salt, and it is a very old style of beer, goes back to the 18th century. It nearly died out in the DDR, and then someone brought it back in Leipzig, and it's a very specialist beer. And this is Germany, by the way, where, you know, they produce a lot of golden lagers, a lot of dark lagers, and a lot of different styles of lager. This is top fermented. It's not an ale in that sense, but it's more like, someone would say, it's a sour wheat beer. And I read about it. I read about it in Michael Jackson, The Beer Hunter, one of his books, you know, years ago. And it fascinated me. I mean, that's the thing about beer. It does fascinate me, which is why I suppose I've ended up writing about it. I had to go and try it. I know brewers have actually tried to make it and they just put salt in. It's not like getting some chips and putting salt and vinegar on it. You know, there is a way of doing it. And I actually went out there and I sat in the pub where Putin used to be a local, because, you know, he was a KGB man over Leipzig way, and that was his local pub apparently. And it's a fantastic place, but one of the things you have to watch for, if you do go to Leipzig, it's brilliant. If you want to know where the pub is, come and ask me later on, and I can't remember at the moment, but I'll find out. It's, first of all, they say you've got to have some Kummel spirit, which is caraway seed spirit, which is lethal. You've got to have it with a beer, which I did, much to my annoyance the next morning. The other thing is, they say, would you like a snack? And you get given some bread and lard, and that's it. So, you know, don't go there expecting anything really delicious. But the reason I loved it there is because this is what it's about. This is about the travel. I can write about this. I know what's happening there. Now, the next place, Amsterdam. There's a great bar in Amsterdam called the Eagle's Nest. Anyone been there? Yes. Yeah, that's fantastic. My stool is on the left-hand side, and it's a great place just to sort, you know, you go there over 3 days. You spend 3 days in Amsterdam, and you really, you know, every night you go to this place and you become a local, and that's another great aspect of beer and travel. But then I have the downside about this. I remember going to Amsterdam in early 90s with a friend, and we just parked ourselves in a bar. No, don't worry, this is going to be a clean story. We parked ourselves in a bar over 3 days, and right, I'm just going to wait for the booze now. I'm a Arsenal fan, so I'll get that one over quickly. And I do remember the barman saying to me, you guys have just bought Ian Wright. And I said, oh, he's rubbish. He's a Crystal Palace reject. He'll never be any good. So that was the end of my days as a sports pundit. And finally, another, you know, we've all done it. We've been in Greece, we've been on holiday, we've been in the bar every night. They know your name. Oh, that's the Cheers thing, isn't it? The bar where everybody knows your name. And the one I had this year, which really I really enjoyed, was in Bologna. Now, Bologna is one of my favourite cities in Italy. It's a wonderful place. If you can get there, it's fantastic. Now, I don't know if any of you people know, but the Italian craft beer revolution is really ongoing. Italian craft beers are absolutely fantastic. They really make some great beers there. They make IPAs, they make pale ales, they make imperial porters. They make some odd beers with funny things in them, like chestnut. Oh, there's a chestnut beer here, isn't there, as well? But and flowers in them and everything. I mean, it's just so innovative, so exciting. But one of my favourite beers there is from a brewery called Birra del Borgo, and they do a beer called Reale, and it's R-E, then capital A-L-E, and it's basically a pale ale with lots of hops in it. It's not a real ale as such, and it's absolutely beautiful. And 3 nights running, I'm going in the same bar just to drink this Reale. The second night, I knew I was accepted. I went in, the barmaid goes, Reale, okay. And that's what, that is what about belonging is for me. I mean, as humans, we all want to belong somewhere or other. We all, so that is one of the aspects of it. Now, if I can read this in the gathering gloom, adventure, that's the other aspect of my travel and beer. As I said to you earlier on, going to America in 1996 was a game changer for me. And in fact, in 1996, I started writing about beer for the first time. It was only small stuff, local magazines on Somerset and everything. And I often wonder if America was that sort of game changer for me. I went to... Who's been to Oktoberfest? I've never seen so many Australians fighting since Gallipoli. I mean, it's just really, I couldn't believe it. I thought it was incredible. Not the Australians fighting, but just the whole, the light, the sound, the noise. It's a city during Oktoberfest which is just devoted to beer, and as someone who's fascinated by beer culture, I just loved it. There's like a whole family coming back from the festival, father in lederhosen falling asleep on the metro, as say the Aussies and the Kiwis fighting and the Brits there, and I just loved the place. In the evening it was too intense, especially when they started playing Andy Williams in sort of brass sort of type music, but during the day I'd really recommend it. You get to the soul of what German, you just realise how much beer and Germany is together. I mean, I don't know if people knew this, but there's a great writer called a travel writer called Patrick Leigh Fermor. Have people heard of him? He wrote one of the best travel books ever, called The Time of Gifts. He basically was 18, he dropped out of school, he didn't want to go in the regiment, his family, this is the 1930s, he didn't want to go in the regiment that his father said you should go in, where I went and everyone else went, and he said, oh no, sod this, I'm going to walk from Felixstowe to Constantinople. So he did that, and the book, Time of Gifts, is the account of him going all the way to Romania, where he remained then for the next 2 years with a Romanian countess, and he was very young and all that. But the fantastic beery element in this is he goes into a beer cellar in Munich in 1934, and of course we all know what 1934 in Munich is about. And he said there's all these sort of brown shirt chaps all drinking and shouting and throwing up and everything, and he ended up getting very drunk as well. But he said there was this moment where he walked into one room, and it's the Hofbrauhaus in Munich. And he walked into this room, and there's a bunch of SS guys in there drinking, and all their black caps with the skull and crossbones are piled up in this window. And I just think that was one of the most chilling, aspects of it. You can think about everything to do with the Nazis and everything, but that sort of, that contrast between the pleasures of drinking and what that uniform meant. And you read that, it's a book I really recommend, not just for that, it's just that anyone's interested in travel, A Time of Gifts by Patrick Leigh Fermor. He was a really fantastic writer. And that when I was in, Munich, I was thinking about that. Actually, I didn't go into Oktoberfest, into Hofbrauhaus, because it was really busy, full of American tourists. And a tip, if you are in Munich, go across the road from it, Ayinger, Ayinger, their tap house in Munich is absolutely fantastic. And the only thing was there were some blokes from Manchester in there, which really bored me rigid at the bar, but never mind. And I put on Twitter today about this talk, and I mentioned the sound of music. When I was in Vermont in 2010 for the Telegraph, I was in Stowe, which is a big ski country during the winter, obviously during the winter, not during the summer, and I went to the Von Trapp brewery. Now, the Von Trapps, obviously we all know about the sound of music and everything. They have a brewery there. just above Stowe, and it's about 2 miles above the town, and they've got an entertainment complex there, and you can do all sorts of sound and music things up there. But this, you know, they're from Austria, and I was talking to Sam Von Trapp, and I interviewed him, and he was like saying, you know, my father remembered all the great beers from Austria, and he wanted to recreate this. And I remember like thinking, I couldn't believe this. I've got to tell my mum, I'm talking to Julie Andrews' grandson, because there's a film I saw when I was a kid, and it's that, you know, I've not seen it. I mean, I always wished there'd been a bit more fighting in it, you know. I mean, but it's just, you know, if you go out that way, they make, you know, you'd think it's a gimmick. You'd really think it's a gimmick, but it isn't. The Von Trapp Brewery make one of the best Helles beers that I've had in the States. So the next thing we're looking at when I'm travelling, experiences. I mentioned Baltic Porter. Do people know about Baltic Porters? They were dark beers that were sent out from England in the 19th century, and well, in the 18th century as well. And Catherine the Great liked them so much, she had their brewers make them. And so basically, what happened was they're like very strong imperial stouts. And they're very rare now in the sort of East. And I was in Lithuania in 2008 with another beer writer, and we went to a brewery called Sivaterius, and I'm not sure I've said that right, so if there's any Lithuanians here, sorry about that. And they did golden beers, they did lagers, they did wheat beers, but they didn't do Baltic porters. So we went out, as you do on these brewery trips, or junkets as some people call them. They are, you know, but you do write about them. We went out with the CEO of the company, and what was abnormal for normal Eastern European trips is it finished early. Finished about 8:30. Normally in the Czech Republic, you're meant to eat about half your weight in pigs and chips and everything before you're even allowed to go and have a beer. But we finished, and so me and the other beer writer, Jeff, we decided to go around Vilnius looking for this Baltic Porter. And it was a bit like we're looking for the sort of great white whale, you know, this fabled beer which you hardly ever see. And so we're sort of walking around, and this guy heard heard us talking in English, and he said, gentlemen, are you looking for anything? Women, perhaps? We said, no, we're looking for dark beers. And he said, he thought for a minute, and he said, you're not looking for women? And he said, no, we want some dark beers. And he said, there's an Irish bar around the corner. But that wasn't very funny, I know, but we never found them. But then, about a year later, people know Żywiec Brewery, the Polish lager. I got taken out there with about 6 other beer writers, and it was... Żywiec Brewery is owned by Heineken, and they wanted us to see their lager, their new lager plant, and it's a decent enough lager. You know, it's refreshing, it's crisp, you know, it's fine. But we knew they produced this porter in a brewery on the Czech border, and we did say to the people who are organising the trip, you know, all of us will come, but we really want to see this brewery. So we got to this brewery in a place called Cheskin, and it was really, the word undercapitalised sprung to mind. They still had a cat to get all the mice, and it was ramshackle. And you know, there were 6 of us there, all of us who specialise in writing about beer. You've never seen so many eyes gleaming. There was this beer there, this fabled Baltic Porter. We'd finally found it. They lagered it, which means time, and the lagers here today have had, I mean, if people have enjoyed the Czech lager, that's had 4.5 weeks of lagering, and that's, you know, that is a commonplace for lagers in the East. They had 90 days, this dark beer did, and it was built inside a cave where the lagering tanks were. And this is how odd I am sometimes. I actually find lagering tanks very sexy, very sensual. I just like that idea that the beer does that great deep sleep. And when we tried the beer, it was just heavenly. The problem was, we were all due at this sparkling new brewery about 2 hours before, and when we finally got there, we were all a bit because it was 9.5% this beer was, and it was beautiful. I would definitely, if you can find it, look for us. They had folk dancers out there for us, they had more food, and it just shows that sometimes, and they're owned by Heineken, you know, the bigger breweries think they want to show one thing, where as beer writers we want to see something else. But we got a look at the heart of, you know, what I say is one of those great rare beer styles of Europe, which sadly is dying out. Smaller breweries are doing it, but the bigger breweries should be doing it as well. Now I'm going to come to the end now, because I suspect the band will be coming on. I've probably rattled on too long for you guys. But, you know, I wanted to say something about
little beer. I was going to say small beer then. It's just I'm in a bar called Small Bar in Bristol tomorrow. I first met Jim here, not here, but in the Chelmsford, in the Guildford Beer Festival about 2.5 years ago. Was it, Chaz? I think I opened it. I don't know if anyone was there, and I think I must be the only person that's ever made a mistake in cutting a ribbon. I didn't do it the first time. I think it's on YouTube somewhere and everything. But I was just fascinated by what he does. I love this idea of this community of beer lovers here. I mean, that's what I really love about it. You know, you guys are here because you want to be here. I don't know whether you want me to be here, but that's a different story. But you know, I just think you should all, you know, it's great what you're doing here, and I'd just like to thank you for listening to me, and I'll just say cheers. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. We're going to get some more music going now. Just give us 2 minutes.
Yeah, I videoed you. I don't know if you. I didn't ask you, but.